Hi, I'm Tori, and today I'm going to be discussing Not Dead Yet by Jenn Burke. This book was published in 2019, and I listened to the audiobook narrated by Greg Boudreau. So this was a really fun story. It's the first book in a series, and it's a sort of paranormal detective romance kind of story. The main character, Wes, is not quite a ghost who died in 1933 and has been just continuing his life kind of off everyone's radar since then. He works as a private retrieval specialist because he has the power to phase in and out of our realm. So at will, he can kind of move from the living plane to the ghostly plane whenever he wants, and he can take objects with him, which is very convenient when he has clients who want things back that maybe an ex stole from them or something like that. So he's in the middle of a routine recovery mission when the person he is retrieving the item from is murdered in front of him. And he is not able to just file a police report because he was a ghost at the time. There's no way of explaining that. So he has to call his ex-boyfriend, who was a police officer. And they have been broken up for, I believe, about 35 years, somewhere in there. And his ex-boyfriend has aged in that time and he has not. So calling him up to discuss this case brings up all kinds of old feelings, and we get to spend the rest of the book kind of seeing what's going to happen with their relationship, if they'll be able to rekindle that old flame, and then trying to figure out this mystery that they're also trying to solve. So I loved the premise of this book, and I thought a lot of things were great about it. I loved the friendships. I loved lots and lots of things about it. I didn't love the central relationship. I thought there were several things about that were fairly unhealthy. But apart from that, I enjoyed the book. So if you want to read a fun paranormal romance detective story, go do that, and you can come back to hear my thoughts on it. So I always love any kind of supernatural detective story. It's so much fun to just kind of be on this mystery thing. It reminds me a little bit of the Alex Craft novels, things like that. We're just on this kind of fun little romp, and it gets dangerous, but it's also fun, and there's romance and adventure. And that part I really, really loved. I really loved Wes's character. I thought he was a great character to follow around, and he was snarky and fun, and it was just fun to hang out in his head. And then I thought one of the strongest things in this book was the friendships. I loved his relationship with Lexi, which I believe is the exact same name as the friend from the Vampire Diaries. So apparently that's just the universal name for sassy supernatural sidekick girl. And I really liked the way that Wes bonded with Vamp Jr., whose name I think was actually Evan, but that didn't stick in my head. What stuck in my head was Vamp Jr. And I loved their relationship, how they were like antagonistic toward each other, but then they really opened up and bonded. And I loved the kind of platonic family they were forming, and just how close they were, and how much this book was willing to have like close relationships that weren't just the romance. These people had very well-rounded lives with very well-rounded friendships in them. What I did not like was the way that Hudson treated Wes. And I can enjoy a story where unlikable characters fall in love with each other. I really liked Love, Hate, and Clickbait. That was a story about two terrible people who fell in love with each other. But the book knew they were terrible, and the characters to some extent knew they were terrible, and it wasn't trying to make them sound all noble and self-sacrificing. It knew what these people were. They had some flaws. They kind of overcame them and grew with them. That's not what happened in this story. So we know from the beginning that Wes and Hudson have changed a lot in the time that they've been apart. Apart from, Hudson becoming a vampire and all of that, they've both grown up a lot and matured a lot. The story keeps referring to Wes being an incredibly selfish person, and that's something that we don't actually see on the page that much. He definitely has a strong sense of self-preservation. He's not the kind of person who will run into a burning building to save a kitten, but he doesn't really seem like that bad of a person. But all of his friends seem to think that he is, and that he's very selfish. And you could maybe believe that he was more selfish in the past, and he's growing and maturing as a person, and he's going to be better, and that's part of the reason that this relationship with Hudson will work so much better this time. Hudson, on the other hand, is the kind of person who is very selfish, but presents it in a way that is self-sacrificing. He gives everything to his job, and since his job is important, he belittles people for questioning what he does, and that's just a very manipulative tactic, and people like that are not fun to interact with in real life, and I don't particularly like reading about them in books. And the story wants us to think that he's changed, that he's grown better, that he's more willing to put the people he cares about first in his life, but he's not. I was horrified when he and Wes went to a crime scene and Wes was injured, and then Hudson asked Wes to go back to another dangerous crime scene by himself. Wes almost died. He could easily die again. And Hudson's like, he'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And this is presented as an instance of Wes being selfish. And not wanting to die is not a selfish thing. It's a very natural, healthy thing. And Hudson just, don't worry about it. Go, you'll be fine. I'm sure you can survive. It's not a big deal. Nothing's going to hurt you. And then when it does, Hudson says he feels so guilty. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you were harmed. I can't believe you were injured. But then as soon as Wes is able to stand up and walk around the house again, Hudson's first idea is, let's go to another crime scene. He clearly has learned nothing. He feels no remorse, and he does not value Wes's life more than he values solving this case. And then Wes's big sign that Hudson has changed is that Hudson took 2 days off work to take care of him. And Wes is just blown away by this and overwhelmed by this. And it is a great thing that Hudson has changed, but it doesn't say that he's an amazing person now. It just says that he was a terrible person back then who has now become slightly better and more like base level kind. Not this incredible, oh my gosh, I can't believe you actually took time off work to sit with me while I was on the verge of death. That's not a huge favor to do somebody, especially when it's very arguably your fault that this happened. That is a basic minimum to be expected thing, and the fact that Wes was so impressed by it is a very, very bad sign. And they could have fixed all of this so easily. In most stories, books and movies where you see something like this, it's the character with the powers who says, I want to go help, and the person who loves that character says, no, you should stay home. If you have a character who actually has a good sense of self-preservation, that's not cowardice. That's just them wanting to protect themselves. And the person who loves them should not be the one telling them to risk their life at every second. And that is not an okay dynamic. And if Wes does not want to pursue a career where he is putting his life in danger, that is his choice. And Hudson has no right to judge him for it, and absolutely no right to pressure him into it. So that whole section threw off the whole book for me. And I was able to get kind of back into the story as it went on. And there was the moment when Hudson was captured and Wes was thinking, oh no, Hudson definitely wouldn't want me to go to the vampire bar because it's dangerous. If he were here, he'd be horrified. And I was thinking, no, if he were there, he'd be pushing you into the bar himself. So that downgraded the book a lot for me, and I really hope that they improve that as time goes on. This is a whole series, and the couple did get together by the end of this book, so that means in the next series, as time goes on, either they'll just be like a crime-fighting team who will work on their relationship as they go, or they'll break up and get back together a whole bunch. I hope it's the first one, and I hope that they work on having a much healthier relationship, and Hudson works on actually caring about his partner, because this was not a fun dynamic to watch. And I would really like it if future books just included more ghosty funness and less unhealthy relationship drama.